Hello everyone, welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Beurah share. We're holding Mishnah Beurah Chelik Aleph, and we will be learning today Miyirtza Hashem Daf Ayin Ches Amid Aleph. We pick up on Ayin Zayin Amid Beis, bottom line in the Shulchan Aruch, in a new Siman, Siman Mem Ches. Oimrim Parshas HaTamid. The Mechaber tells us that we are to recite the Parsha, the Psukim that describe the bringing of the Korban Tamid. Upsuke Korban Shabbos Oimrim Eitzel Parshas HaTamid. When it is Shabbos, we read the Psukim that describe the Korban Musaf of Shabbos together with the Parsha of the Tamid. Ubay Sif Echad, and here we have one Sif. This is an interesting Siman because the Siman actually begins with a Hagah. It begins with the words of the Ramah before we even get to Sif Aleph. Says the Ramah, Hagah. Va'imreim Parshas HaTamid. We recite the Parshas HaTamid. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Beurah. Mishnah Beurah is cut in Aleph. Says the Chavetz Chaim HaTamid. We say the Parsha of the Tamid. Explains the Chavetz Chaim. Why do we recite the Psukim that describe the Korban Tamid? V'hi bim kaima kravas Korban HaTamid. Because that takes the place of actually bringing the Korban Tamid. Unfortunately, Ba'avei Niseinu Arabim, we can't bring the Korban Tamid because we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. So, like the pasuk says, Unishalma parim svasenu. Unishalma parim, we pay, so to speak, we replace the actual bringing of parim, of cows, of animals on the Mizbeach, svasenu, with our lips. Unishalma parim, we pay for the parim, svasenu, with our lips. Which means that our tefillah is what takes the place of the bringing of the korbanos. So v'hibim kaima kravas korban hatamid. By reciting the parsha of the tamid, that replaces the actual bringing of the korban tamid on the mizbeach. Shekain kiblu chazal, because this is what the chazal had a Mesorah. Shebizman she'ein beis hamikdash kayim, that when we do not have a beis hamikdash, ve'ein yechelim lahakriv korbanos, and we don't have the ability to bring korbanos on the mizbeach. Misha oisik bahen ubeparshi oisehen, those that busy themselves, that engage themselves in learning the parsha of the korbanos, mala alav akasav ki'ilu hikrivam, the Torah considers it as if they brought those korbanos. Ulakach, and for that reason, yesh ibrim gamkein seder hama'aracha mitam zeh. For the same reason, in the part of davening that we refer to as the korbanos, not only do we describe the bringing of the korban tamid, but we also read the seder hama'aracha. In korbanos, we have a memorah from the Gemara. It says over here, it's a Gemara from Yuma Daf Lamed Gimel. Abaya haya misader seder hama'aracha mishma Gemara va'aliba da'abashol. Abaya would describe the Seder HaMa'aracha. The Seder HaMa'aracha means the order of the Avodah done in the Beis Hamikdash in the morning. And he did it according to the sheet of Abishol. Ma'aracha Gedola Kedamis LaMa'aracha Shniya Shel Ketores. On top of the Mizbeach Achitzain, the Mizbeach that was in the Azara outside of the Heichel, that's the big Mizbeach in the Mishkan. It was the Mizbeach HaNechoshes, the Mizbeach that was made out of copper that was in the Mishkan. In the Beis Hamikdash it was not, but the outer Mizbeach, that's the Mizbeach that the korbanos were brought on. On top of the Mizbeach, there were two stacks, two pyres of burning wood. There was a large one in the center, and then there was a small one at the southwestern corner of the Mizbeach. The small one was used, they would take every day, twice a day, they would take a shovel full of burning coals off of that small ma'aracha and bring it into the Azara and use it to burn the ketores on the inner Mizbeach. So again, Abaya says ma'aracha gedola, the arranging of the ma'aracha gedola, of the large pyre in the center of the Mizbeach, kaidemes la ma'aracha shniya shel ketores, that took place before the arranging of the secondary ma'aracha that was used for the ketores. Ma'aracha shniya shel ketores, and the arranging of that ma'aracha shniya for the ketores Kaidemes l'sidur shnei gizrei eitzim, took place before the avodah of the gizrei eitzim. Every day there was a mitzvah for the kohen to take 2 big pieces of wood and place them onto the ma'aracha gedola in the center of the mizbeach. The sidur shnei gizrei eitzim, this avodah of the shnei gizrei eitzim, kaidem l'dishun mizbeach hapnimi, took place before the removal of the ashes from the mizbeach HaTorah inside the Azara. V'dishun mizbeach hapnimi, the removal of ashes from the mizbeach hapnimi, kaidem lahatavas chamesh neros, took place before the kohen would clean out 5 of the lamps, 5 of the 7 lamps of the menorah, to prepare them to be lit. V'hatavas chamesh neros kaidemes latam hatamid, the cleaning out of those 5 lamps took place before the zrika, the sprinkling of the dam of the carbon tamid on the mizbeach. V'dam tamid kaidem lahatavas shtei neros, and the sprinkling of the dam tamid on the mizbeach took place before the preparation of 2 of the neros of the menorah. V'hatavas shtei neros kaidemes l'ketoros, the hatavas shtei neros took place before the burning of the avodah of the ketoros. Uketoros kaidemes l'evarim, the avodah of the ketoros took place before the burning of the limbs and the different parts of the animal of the carbon tamid. Ve'evarim l'mincha, the evarim were brought before the mincha, the flour offering of the carbon tamid was brought. U'mincha l'chavitim, the mincha took place before the chavitin, which was the mincha that was brought every day by the kohen gadol. The chavitin l'nesachin, u'nesachin l'musafin, u'musafin l'bazichin, u'bazichin kaidmin l'tamid shalbein ha'arbayim. So here we have, Abaya gave a rough outline of all of the avodas that took place on a daily basis in the Beis HaMikdash, and we have a minute to recite that during korbanos. Why? Again, for the same reason, for Nishalma Parim Svasenu. Since we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, and this is not actively taking place in the Beis HaMikdash, by reading the Parsha, and by being oisik, by engaging in the study of these inyanim, it's as if we were zeicha to accomplish this avodah. Continues the Chavetz Chaim. Venerally Pashat, he says, it seems obvious, Demisha Yedei Sefer, that somebody who knows how to learn, mitzvah lilmoid bagamara pirush hamemra hazu. Really, he has a mitzvah not just to recite this in korbanos, but to go to the Gemara in Yumalam Gimalam and Aleph and learn it so that you understand it. So too, for example, every day in korbanos we say Pitam HaKetoros. We read the psukim that have the brises that depict the preparation of the ketoros. You should learn it really, so that you know what you're saying. And then the recitation of these inyanim could stand in place of actually performing the avodah. And this is what's written in the Svarim. When the Gemara says that if you're oisik, if you engage yourself in the parsha of the carbon tamid, it's as if you brought a carbon tamid. What that means is that you're misasik in it, you learn it and you study it so that you understand it. It's not just a simple reading of the words that takes the place of the avodah. It's the learning and the studying and understanding, the being oisik in the parsha. The Magen Avram writes, Parshas HaKorbanos Yomer Ba'amida, that the parshas of the korbanos should be recited while standing. Why? Dugmas HaKorbanos Shehaya Ba'amida, because the avodah of the korbanos was done Ba'amida. So since you're trying to replace the avodah itself, the same way the avodah was done Ba'amida, the amira should be done Ba'amida. However, if you take a look at the Shari Tshuva, he brings down in the name of many Achronim, Shacholkin Alzeh, who take issue with this, and they differ, and they say there's no need to say the korbanos while standing, because, look, the bottom line is you're not doing the avodah. If you were doing the avodah, you would have to be a kohen, you would have to be wearing big day kahuna, and there are 1,001 other halachas that would apply. So you're not really doing the avodah. You're doing a recitation and a study that has the ability to stand instead of the avodah. So there's no need to stand. When the Pri Megadim Kasav, the Pri Megadim writes, the Mekamaka in the Parshas HaTamid Ra'in Lamed, that at least by the parsha of the Tamid you should stand. Why? Shekayrin b'tzibur b'kol ram. Because back in the day, apparently, they used to recite the parsha of the Karban Tamid together as a tzibur, kind of like the way we say Kedusha. So they said it together out loud, together as a tzibur, so then because of kavod tzibur, there was a need to stand. Gam mashakasa beber heitev b'shem derech hachachma sheyizar aloymer parshas hatamid b'tzibur im hashliach tzibur. This minig that you should be nizer to say the parshas hatamid with the tzibur. Ayin b'shari tshuva shehisik al zeh. The shari tshuva takes issue with that as well. Kasav a Pri Megadim, the Pri Megadim writes, Masha kasav b'sidurim b'nusach ha'yihiratzon. This that it says in the sidurim, where we have a hiratzon that we say after we recite the parsha of the Tamid. And it says over there, Ki'ilu hikravnu karban hatamid. We ask the Rabbanu Shalom that our recitation should be as if we actually brought the karban tamid. V'yesh garsin hikravti. There are those that have a nusach that says this b'lashon yochid, Ki'ilu hikravti, as karban hatamid. It should be as if I brought the karban tamid, not we, I. Says the Pri Megadim, Eino Nachain. That is improper. Ki hikrafti b'parshas chatas ha'ba'olim koi. Because if you want to say hikrafti by a karban chatas, so you could say that, because a private karban chatas, if a person is chayiv to bring a karban chatas, there's only one owner of the karban. The person who's chayiv to bring the chatas brings the chatas. So he could say ki'ilu hikrafti, as if I brought the karban chatas. Mashen came at tamid. But this stands in contrast to the karban tamid. Ein yochid mikri bailim. The karban tamid is brought on behalf of the entire tzibur. There's no one single owner of the karban tamid. So how can you say kilu hikravti, as if I brought the karban tamid? It's not brought on your behalf. It's brought on behalf of the entire tzibur. And therefore you should always say kravnu. It's as if we brought the karban tamid. HaTorah gersa kilu karav hatamid b'mayadai v'zanachai. Ubishari tshuva miyashiv gama gersa shalanu. The shari tshuva gives a possible explanation for the gersa of ki'ilu hikravti. Okay, now we go back to Ayin Zayin and Beis in the bottom line. Let's continue with the words of the Ramah. V'yesh omrim seder Ramah aracha. There are those that say this memra that we just discussed from Yuma Lamed Gimel, where we say the seder ha'ma'aracha. V'ribayin ha'ilamim atat tzivisanu. We have a very nice tefillah after we recite the korbanos. We have a tefillah over here that says, Ribayin ha'olamim, Master of the world, of the universe, atat tzivisanu, you commanded lahakriv karban hatamid b'mayadai, to bring the karban hatamid at the proper time, v'liyos kayanim ba'avodasam, and that there should be kayhanim engaged in doing the avodah, u'leviim b'duchanam, and that there should be leviim b'duchanam on their platforms singing shira, v'yisrael b'ma'amadam, and there should be representatives of Klal Yisrael, of the Shvatim, standing over the korbanos in the Beis Hamikdash. V'atar now b'avodesenu, through our averis charav Beis Hamikdash, the Beis Hamikdash never was destroyed. Ubutal hatamid, and the karban tamid is bottled. We don't have a karban tamid. Ve'en lanu lo kayin ba'avodasai, and we don't have kayanim performing the avodah. V'lo levi b'duchanai, we don't have a levi on his duchan singing the shira. V'lo yisrael b'ma'amadai, and we don't have yidden representing us in the Beis Hamikdash. Lachein, therefore, yiratzai milfanecha Hashem Elokeinu v'lekevisenu. It should be your will, sheyesiach sifseisenu, that the speech of our lips, choshuv, should be valued, umakubal, and accepted, umarutza, and it should be favorable, lefanecha, before you, ki'ilu ikravdum karban hatamid b'mayadoi, as if we brought the karban hatamid at its proper time, uvimekaimai, and in its proper place, ukehilchasai, according to all of its halachas, k'maisha nemar, and this is as it says in the pasuk, uneshalma parim svasenu, that our lips will repay what we cannot do. We can't do the avodah, we can't bring the korbanos, our lips by saying these parshas, it should be as if we did. So the Ramah said, V'yesh Oimrim, there are those that say the Seder HaMa'aracha, V'ribono Olam Amatu Tzivisanu, V'im Efshar La'amroi B'tzibur. The Ramah says, if you're not able to recite these things together with the tzibur, Yachal La'amroi B'beisai, you could say them in your house, B'yichidus, V'lachzor Parshas HaTorah Levad Im HaTzibur. So you'll say all of the korbanos at home, B'yichidus, and then when you come to shul, if they have the minhag to say the Parshas HaTorah out loud together with the tzibur, so you'll say it with them. The Yechavein B'pam HaShniyah, but you should have kavana when you say it for the second time, Kikoirei B'Torah, as if you're just reading the Parsha. What the Ramah is concerned with is just you shouldn't say the Parshas HaTorah twice as if you're bringing two Tmidim. There's only one Tamid Shel Shachar. There's two Tmidim, one morning Tamid and one afternoon Tamid. But there aren't two Tmidim in the morning. So when you said the Parshas HaTorah, you say it once in the morning, and that should stand as if you brought the Korban Tamid Shel Shachar. But you don't say it twice with that kavanah. Says the Mishnah Berurah here on Chesam and Aleph, Dibra Maskel Beis, Ice Cut Beis. B'tzibur, they had this minhag to say the Korban Tamid B'tzibur. Shedarkam B'isa Mokim Loimer Rak Parshas HaTorah Levad B'tzibur. Okay, Ice Gimel V'lachzor, and then when you get to shul, you'll repeat the Korban HaTorah, this time with the tzibur. Shemin Hagam Ayim Mikedem Loimer Hakol B'Yachid B'Kol Ram, because back in the day there was a minhag for everybody to recite the Parshas HaTorah together out loud. V'imkein lo yachal lishtoik be'esha yarmu b'tzibur. And that's why don't we just say that if you say it b'yechidus at home, you shouldn't say it in shul? Because if when you go to shul, they're saying it all together b'tzibur, it wouldn't pass for you to stand there quietly. It looks like you're chas v'chalila denying the korban tamid. So yes, you said it at home b'yechidus. Now say it again together with the tzibur, but have kavanah that it's only kikari b'Torah. So you can't stand there quietly when the tzibur is saying the Parshas HaTorah together out loud. The year min milsa, because everybody would see that you're sitting there quietly, and that wouldn't look right. But when you do recite it for the second time, you should have kavanah that it's just like you're being kairei b'Torah. It's just like you're reading the psukim of the Chumash. Ayin b'Torah rak l'rav the milsa. This is not so important. It's not critical. Just shelo yenira kilu makriv shtei tamidim. It shouldn't look like you think there are two tamid shel shacharis. Okay, let's go weiter here in the Ramah. Second line down, Ayin Chesam and Aleph. V'nagu amedaktikim. Those who are careful with their mitzvahs have the minhag lehisnoyeya, to shuckle, to shake. B'shah shekayrin b'Torah, when they say as part of the davening psukim from the Torah like the Parshas HaTorah. Why? Dugmas HaTorah shenitne bereses. This is similar to the Torah HaKdosha, which was given in a state of trembling. It says in the pasuk by Kabbalah HaTorah, Vayar kol ha'am vayanu. The entire nation saw. We saw the kolos. We saw the thunder. We perceived visually what is impossible to perceive visually. You cannot see sound. But by Kabbalah HaTorah, we saw the kolos. And we saw the eish. And we saw everything going on. Vayar ha'am vayanu, when they trembled. So we received the Torah by Kabbalah HaTorah bereses, with trembling. Therefore, when we daven and we say psukim, we tremble, we shuckle. So that's why the Ramah says, "V'nagu amadaktikim lehisnoyeya b'shah shekayrin b'Torah." They would shuckle when they said words from the Torah. Dugmas HaTorah shenitne bereses, v'chein b'shah shemispalalim, and so too when they daven they would shuckle. Al shem kol atzmaisai taimarna Hashem yichamecha. This is to follow the pasuk that says in Tehillim, Kol atzmoisai taimarna. All of my bones, all of my limbs say Hashem yichamecha, meaning that the entire guf is involved in the davening, and that's why we shuckle. It's brought down in the name of the Zayar, I believe, that shuckling is also, when we learn Torah, we shuckle. Why do we shuckle when we learn Torah? Ki ner mitzvah v'Torah oir. Torah is like a ner, it's like a fire. Fire is never steady. Fire is always shaking. Fire trembles. When we learn Torah, we shake. I think the Zohar says that that's a raya, that the neshama of a yid is different than the neshama, the ruach of an Eina Yehudi. The neshama of a yid, when it is exposed to Torah, a yid, when he learns Torah, shuckles. Why? Because it's the neshama that's reacting to the ner, to the oir of Torah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, ois cotton hay, b'shosha b'spalalim, they would chuckle when they davened. V'yesh paiskim shacholkin al zeh, there are paiskim that take issue with this. V'ayimrim de betfila ein lehistanea, and they say that by davening it is not proper to shuckle. The Yeshivas Atzal, Rav Moshe Zechet Tzadik Tosh Levracha, did not shuckle during Shemoneh Esrei. He stood stock still with his hands clasped in front of him, slightly bent over, and he didn't move. And that's the way he recited Shemoneh Esrei. I believe he once said that the reason he did that was not so much because of this halacha, that, in other words, we have a machlokes haposkim here, whether you should shuckle or not. But what Rav Moshe said was that he experienced an interrogation by the NKVD, the precursor to the KGB. He experienced an interrogation when he was still in Soviet Russia, before he came to the United States. He was interviewed by an officer of the NKVD, and they made him stand like that for the entire time. And he perceived that that was a very humble way to stand. In other words, if you're standing in fear and hachna and humbleness, that's a way to stand. So that's the way he stands in front of the Rabbanu Shalom, in a very humble, subservient way while he davened. So again, on cotton hay, v'yesh paiskim shacholken al zev ayman de betfila ein leisnanea. V'rak b'psuke de zimra u'birkas kriya shema. It's only by psuke de zimra and birkas kriya shema v'limud HaTorah, and when learning Torah, afilu shabal peh, even Torah shabal peh, haminig leisnanea. The minig is to shuckle sich. Because of a Magen Avraham, the Magen Avraham writes, a David Kamar of it, who David Kamar of it. Either way you do, whether you shuckle or you don't, it's okay. Depends on the person. If shuckling will help you be mechaven, it'll help you concentrate and pay attention to your davening or your learning. Yisnanea, v'imlav, yamin kach. And if not, if it's better for you for your concentration, if it's better for you not to shuckle, so then don't shuckle. Says the Mishnah Berurah, uktzas misnanim tenua mishubeshes. Some do a bad type of shuckling. What's that? Shaguf oimer alomdoi. The body stays exactly still. Rak beroish haifich, and just with their head they would turn palm liyamin, sometimes to the right, to palm little smile, sometimes to the left. And the Chavetz Chaim says this is derech gaiva. Somehow this is a derech gaiva. It's a haughty way of doing things, and therefore ein lasis gain. Okay? Now finally we get to Sif Aleph in Siman Memches. Says the Mechaber, B'Shabbos, when we daven on Shabbos morning, Oimrim Eitzel Parshas HaTamid Psuke Musaf to Shabbos. When we say korbanos, when we say the Parshas HaTamid, we should also say the psukim of the korban musaf of Shabbos. That's part of what we lay in on Rosh Chodesh. It's two psukim that describe the korban musaf of Shabbos. We should recite it together with the Parshas HaTamid. But on Rosh Chodesh and on Yom Tov, there's no need to recite the psukim of the musaf of Rosh Chodesh or the psukim of the musaf of that Yom Tov when you say korbanos. Why? On Rosh Chodesh, when you lane the korban musaf of Rosh Chodesh. On Sukkot, when you lane, the maftir is the korban musaf of Sukkot. On Pesach, the maftir that you lane is the korban musaf of Pesach. So on Rosh Chodesh and on Yom Tov, you're going to recite the psukim of the Korban Musaf B'tzibur when you lane the maftir, or on Rosh Chodesh when you lane the kriya. But on Shabbos you don't lane the psukim of the Korban Musaf. You ever wonder why not? Again, on Sukkot, every day we lane on Sukkot, we lane a maftir, we lane the Korban Musaf of Sukkot. So how come on Shabbos we don't lane a maftir, the Korban Musaf of Shabbos? The answer is because the Korban Musaf of Shabbos is only 2 psukim. And we don't lane 2 psukim b'tzibur. So we don't do it. So on Shabbos there's an inyan to recite the psukim of the Korban Musaf where we say korbanos together with the psukim of the Parshas HaTorah. However, the Ramah continues here, Hagah, there are those that say that on Rosh Chodesh, even though you're going to lane the Korban Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, you should also recite the psukim of the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh in korbanos. And that's the minhag. Why? In order to be mefarsim, to announce to everybody that it's Rosh Chodesh. Yom Tov, we don't have to be mefarsim. Everybody knows it's Yom Tov. And the Yom Tov began the night before, so everybody knows it's Yom Tov. But Rosh Chodesh, we only really start to celebrate it by day, with the extended davening in the morning. So we want to make sure everybody knows it's Rosh Chodesh, so we go ahead and we say it in korbanos. V'cheinu l'kaman Siman Tav Chaf Aleph. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut vav kedei lefarseim. Al Yom Tov ain't tzrich lefarseim. Yom Tov we don't have to be mefarsim. Shekvaru meforsim ayesmal. Al Shabbos alpha pishu meforsim. Omer ma'isa b'shacharis. Shabbos, which certainly we don't have to be mefarsim. Everybody knows it's Shabbos. Still, we say the psukim of the Korban Musaf of Shabbos in korbanos. Sharei ein yicholin l'kreis of HaTorah, because we can't lane it. Memnei she'ein b'al shtei psukim k'may she'ispar b'siman reish pei gimel. Okay, we're going to be a little bit abbreviated today. We're going to stop over here, and we'll continue next time here at Hashem with Siman Mem Tes. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. Schus of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rosh Hashanah should say Yeshua Sefuas Parnasa and Shidduchim to those in need, and we should be zeicher to see the Biaskel Tzedek b'mehera v'yameinu amen. Be well.